What's up, folks? I'm Dwayne,
I'm Alicia.
and this is Blackboard Gaming, where we teach you about all these great board games that are out there.
Waiting to be played by you and yours.
I'm a simple man, don't wanna complicate ya. Complicate ya.
Hey, everybody!
Today, we're going to give you a heads up on a game coming to Kickstarter soon. That game is called Propolis.
Propolis is designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Shawn Stankewich, and being published by Flat Out Games.
Let's go to the table for an overview of how this game is played.
Propolis is a worker placement engine building game for 1 to 4 players, where the players take on the role of medieval bee colonies competing to make the best beehive. Keep in mind that this is a prototype copy of the game. To set up the game, each player is going to get a player board, 6 resource markers, 1 of each color, and 12 worker beeples matching their chosen player color. Each player is going to take their resource markers and place them into their matching color track on the game board in the 1 slot, with the gold resource marker being placed over here on the wild track. Then each player is going to keep 9 of their worker beeples next to their player board, and then they're going to take the other 3 and place them in a central supply in the middle of the play area. To set up the play area, we're going to take this deck of double-sided landscape and structure cards and give it a good shuffle with the landscape side face up. And then we're going to deal out 10 cards with the structure side face up to form the structure market. And then take the deck and place it next to the structure market with the landscape side face up. We would then deal out rows of 4 cards each beneath the structure market with the landscape side face up. And the rows dealt out will be equal to the number of players. So we're setting up for a 2-player game, so we will have 2 rows of 4 cards each for a total of 8 cards. Next, we're going to take this deck of 12 double-sided cards with the Queen's Palace on one side and starting structures on the other side. We're going to give that a good shuffle with the Queen's side face up, and then we're going to deal 1 card to each player. Each player is going to take their card and flip it to their starting structure side, and they're going to place it in their play area, and that's where they're going to start building up their tableau of cards, and then they're going to receive their starting resources as indicated at the bottom of the card. Then we're going to deal a number of those cards with the Queen's Palace side face up above the structure market based on the number of players. So like I said, we're setting up for a 2-player game, so we're going to place 5 cards up here, returning the rest of the cards to the box. So now we're all set up ready to play. So Propolis is going to be played over multiple rounds, and the game end will be triggered when a player has built 10 structure cards into their tableau, which is known as their hive. And that's going to include their starting structure and hopefully one of those Queen's Palace cards. And then once that game end is triggered, we're going to make sure everybody has an equal amount of turns, and then we're going to score up points. So on a player's turn, they're going to take 1 of 5 actions. So I'm going to move some stuff around so you can see how the actions work. But the first action you can do is you can deploy a number of your worker beeples, standing them upright out onto any one of these empty landscape cards. And for every worker beeple you deploy, you will gain that matching resource. So if I decided to go to this landscape card deploying these 2 worker beeples, then I would get this and this resource and this resource, moving my resource markers up the track. Now there are a couple other things you can get by deploying worker beeples. Here, if I deploy the worker beeple here, that means I can switch out resources. So I can move this one down to move this one up if I wanted to. Now you can't do that with the while, of course. Here, if I place a worker beeple here, then I will get another worker beeple from the central supply and place it in my play area. Now when deploying worker beeples, you don't have to fill up the card. So let's say later on, I decide to just send out these 2 worker beeples and get those 2 resources, leaving this one open because maybe I don't want that or I don't have enough worker beeples. The thing is, when a player deploys worker beeples, they can only place them on empty landscape cards. If a player deploys their worker beeples out onto the last remaining open card in a given row, not only will they gain those resources, but they will also gain a wild resource. The second action a player can take is they can fortify worker beeples. And what that means is they will be able to choose any 2 of their worker beeples out on any one of these landscape cards. They can pick worker beeples on the same card or 2 different cards and lay them down and gaining that specific resource a second time. Also, if you fortify in a row that doesn't have any empty landscape cards, you will gain a wild resource. The third action a player can take is they can retreat any number of their worker beeples from any one of these landscape cards. So let's say this player decides they're going to take these worker beeples and you place them back into their personal supply, and then they decide they're going to take this one. You don't have to take all of the worker beeples from a card, because remember, players can only deploy worker beeples out onto empty landscape cards. Now I think this is a good time to talk about checking for majority. So let's put these worker beeples back. So at the end of a player's turn, if any of these rows have landscape cards that are no longer empty, then we would check for majority. And so let's say in the earlier example, when this player placed these worker beeples here, we would have checked for majority. And as you can see, they would have been tied because each of these standing worker beeples are worth 1 point. So each will have 5. And if there's a tie, nothing happens. But in the later turn, when this player fortified this worker beeple, fortified beeples count as 2. So now this player would have had 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this player would have had 5. So if a player wins the majority, they immediately remove all their worker beeples from that row only. So that's a way to get your worker beeples back without wasting a whole turn retreating worker beeples. Now, if the player that won was not the active player, they will also get a wild resource. Now, once the active player or whoever won retrieves their worker beeples, then we would take the rightmost empty landscape card, place it into the discard pile, and then we would slide everything over and add a new landscape card to the display. And as you can see, whoever didn't win, they get to leave their meeples there, so they be able to battle for the next majority. The fourth action a player can take is they can construct one of these structure cards out in the structure market. And they will build that by spending the indicated resources at the bottom of the card. So you'll be spending your resources, and sometimes you might have to spend some of your worker beeples by returning those to the central supply. And when you build this card, you're going to place it into your tableau or your hive. And these cards will give you points at the end of the game. They will also give you immediate bonuses and sometimes give you permanent benefits throughout the rest of the game. So let's say this one, I decide to build this one. This will give me 4 points into the game, but it'll also allow me to gain 2 worker beeples from the central supply. Of course, that's expensive. That's a lot of resources. This one will give me 2 points per pair of matching banners with those letters. These cards have banners lettered A through D. So this one will give me permanent resources. I will spend 2 of my worker beeples, returning them to the central supply, spend that resource for that resource, and then I will place this in my tableau. But now I have these as permanent resources. If you see, my starting structure card already has a permanent resource and a scoring opportunity. So let's say I decide to build this. I'm going to take 2 beeples, return it to the central supply. I will spend this. I got 1, and then I'm going to spend 3 wild. And so now I will get this card, place it in my tableau. And so now I have these 2 permanent resources. And then we will reveal the next card off the top of the deck. The 5th and final action a player can take is they can build out one of these Queen's Palaces and place it into their hive. Now, when building these Queen's Palaces, you can only build one. So once you build one, can't build another one. And now the thing about building these palaces is you can only use permanent resources that you have into your hive. You can't spend these resources. So if you see, let's say I wanted to build this one. I have those 2 as permanent resources. I have that one, but I also have a wild. So I'm going to use that one. And also I have to spend 3 worker beeples, placing them into the central supply. So now I can build this Queen's Palace, putting it into my tableau. Now this is going to score me 3 points in the game, but also if you see the banner is a wild, it has an X, so that means wild. So I could substitute it for another letter. So remember, I need 2 points for every A and D pair. I have a D, but I don't have an A, so I could put that there. And so now I get those 2 points also. So like I said, the game will continue until a player has constructed 10 structure cards into their hive. And then we will make sure everybody gets the same amount of turns. And then we will count up the points. And whoever has the most points will be the winner of Propolis.
So for those of you who like cute games, this might be for you. With the colorful meeples.
The beeples.
Beeples. The bright colors, they're so cute.
Worker beeples.
The worker beeples. For me, honestly, that's the first thing that caught my eye, is the bright, pretty colors and the adorable beeples.
Now, I first saw this game at PAX, and I was like, I know Alicia will love these little worker beeples, you know, and I knew you was going to be attracted to the bright colors.
They are cute and they are colorful.
Now, we both like worker placement games. So I was like, we definitely need to see what this game is about. And when we played it, we really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I want to speak for you, but I did really enjoy it because I like the way you send your worker beeples out to gather the resources. You can send as many that can fit on that card, or you could just send like a couple, because you have a limited amount of worker beeples to send out. And sometimes when you build one of them structures, you have to spend beeples. So you got to look for ways to get those beeples back.
Yes. So I do like the worker placement and the tableau building. One of the this game, to me, was just a little reminiscent of Splendor in the way you were able to go. Once you got certain cards, you had a permanent discount. So that familiarity made the game more accessible for me.
Yeah, I got that. You know, that engine building
That
part.
engine building part.
Also, the fact that you could not buy one of those Queen's Palaces without permanent resources.
Exactly. Right. Now, the game to me was pretty family friendly. It's easy to learn. It's an easy teach, and I think it does require strategy.
Yeah.
It does require planning. However, I still think it's accessible and approachable. The one thing that I would like to see is getting one of those Queen's Palaces. I felt like for the amount of effort you put into it, they should be worth more.
No, I get it. They could have had a couple more points tagged on to that.
Yes.
You know, because you can only, like I said, you can't use your regular resources. You have to use your permanent resources.
So you have to
in order to get those.
accumulate permanent resources to get them. So I think it should kind of boost your score a little bit more.
Yeah,
than
I
it
get
did.
that. You know, and I see what you're saying. Like, it does remind me of Splendor.
Yes.
You know, which I'm glad because, you know, familiarity attracts you to a game, along with the nice, bright colors.
Yes. Yes.
And so, like we said, Propolis is coming to Kickstarter and soon. And we're going to put a link in the description below so you can go check out the Kickstarter. And I think this game will be great for people, you know, that like worker placement, that like that engine building, the resource management. Also, and like I said, it's a low rule set, easy to get out on the table. But I think it is a real, you know, I think it has some crunch to it.
It has some crunch to it. And if you're one of those people who likes cuteness, this has the cuteness.
All right. So, like I said, go ahead, check that video, check out the Kickstarter rather. And if you like the contents of this video, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
I'm Dwayne.
I'm Alicia.
This has been Blackboard Gaming.
We will see you next time.